I'm going to start broadcasting in the meantime, and I am Megan, I don't need to do anything about the recording, right? It's happening.
Yes, we are currently recording.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get started. Let's get started. It's 1 p.m. Amy, you ready?
Yes, indeed. Go for it.
Cool. Well, my name is Charles Vilmorin, and it is with a huge impatience, I want to say, very high level of excitement, that I want to welcome everyone to today's Activity Strong 4 gathering. I want to pause a brief second, and as people are getting into the room, I want to thank everyone who works in the senior living or long-term care industry, especially people that have a activity or life enrichment responsibilities. And I want to thank you and tell you how much it is an honor to be able to work, support, and just know people like you. The past 6 months, more or less, have been extremely challenging for all of our society, but especially people that live and work in our industry. It is actually the industry that has and is still bearing the most challenges linked to COVID-19. So Activity Strong was created as a response to this, right? It was created by us at Link Senior. We're behind the initiative called All People Are Cool and also Activity Strong. The reason why we created it was really to acknowledge and empower and educate activity and life enrichment directors. So it is a response to COVID-19, but also as a way for us to celebrate how essential all of you are. Every single day you show up at work and you help residents live with purpose. With the Activity Strong initiative, we created a manifesto where we believe a person is a person no matter their age. We know not all those who wander are lost, that we're not measured by the size of our strength, but the strength of our hearts, and the fact that we are essential. Some of you might have participated in our summit back in June, which was a huge success. And we're very excited because we are continuing to build the Activity Strong platform in partnership with NAAP, hi Amy, and NCAP. And part of that partnership, is to continue building the platform in different ways, including having different types of swags sold on the activitiesstrong.com website. Now, the benefits of this store, we felt, was very fair to have the proceeds go into the scholarship fund for NAAP, so that we can train, in turn, more activity directors, because we believe that the more there are activity directors and the more they're trained as activity director, the better the life of residents in our industry. And I'm extremely proud to say that so far we've raised more than $1,100 for this particular fund, which is very exciting. Now, the question is, why would we do this? Well, one, obviously everyone needs a face mask these days for some reason, or for some different reasons. But I think the other thing also is just to show how proud we are of the work that we are all doing, right? So here's just a few examples of contributions that we've had on our Facebook page and different social media. Now, as I said, we all partner to continue building this Activity Strong platform. Today's event is one of many events that are going twice a month and on a quarterly basis. So if you go to the Activity Strong website, this is today's event. but you can also register to future events. Now, let me talk to you briefly about these events because they're important to understand how we're doing them. We thought it was very appropriate to have each event focus on one step of the resident engagement process, which is essentially we want to get to know our residents. This is today's theme. We want to be able to plan something based on that information. That is the December theme. We want to implement something. So this is where we'll have some kind of surprise happen in the spring. And this surprise will be in conjunction then with the NAAP conference next year in 2021. And then the evaluation part will be our virtual summit in 2021 on June 22nd. So you can, I know it's in the future, and a lot of things are going to be changing since, but we will be there to continue building the Activity Strong platform. To do that today, I am joined with fantastic and some of the best professionals and leaders in the industry to talk to you about this very important topic, which is to understand how we get to know our residents. The first thing I'm going to do is to walk you through the schedule where Amy Laughlin, president of NAAP, is going to start in just a couple minutes with a session called Getting to Know You. We will then have a short break with a number of announcements, and at 2:30 I will do a presentation on It Begins with the Residents with Abby, Executive Director of Vermont Square in Toronto. And then at 3:30, Cathy is going to lead us through her presentation called My Sole Purpose. Now, we're not going to end there. One of the many surprises of today is that we also decided to have some kind of informal meet and greet at the end of today's gathering. A lot of you, and I think most of us on planet Earth today, long for more human connection. I do anyway. And so today's meet and greet is the first of a series that we're going to be doing, which is going to allow us to meet other people in a very informal way. As a note, this 4:45 event is in a different Zoom registration. And Megan, if you don't mind sharing with us the link in the chat. The information is also on our Facebook page, and everyone is welcome. It's going to be hosted by Lori Pressler and Brian Rife. With that, let me go through one last item, which is to make today's presentation, or gathering, I should say, and the whole event fun. We decided to do another bingo, like we did for our virtual summit, which is essentially a bingo game of different tasks that you need to do. Some of them started days or weeks ago because we've already got quite a few submissions. But in today's presentation, each of the sessions is going to have a code word that you need to complete the whole bingo card. With that, let me walk you through the basic, the final or administrative piece of our presentations today, which is that, one, you can earn up to 3 NAAP and NCAP CEUs today. As it says on the screen, the survey will be given at the end of the presentations, and it will be emailed to all of you by the end of the day today. You need to fit it in. You will fill out this survey before midnight on Thursday, September 17th, and the certificate will be emailed to you. We promise they will. You don't need to call us or email us. I mean, you're more than welcome to, but you will get the certificate on September 23rd. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. We're using both platforms, Zoom, Facebook Live, but just so you know, for CEUs, you need to be on Zoom. One last item, just because of the number of people on the line today, Zoom has 2 features, the chat and the Q&A. The chat, as you've probably seen, is very active. We don't monitor that for Q&A, so if you have specific questions for today's speakers, please drop them in the Q&A. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining. Thanks to every one of the speakers today for helping us engage, educate today's professionals, and continuing to build the Activity Strong initiative. Amy, it's yours. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you do that.
All right. Hello, everybody. Really glad to have such a wonderful crowd of people on the fall gathering today for Activity Strong. Charles, thank you for inviting me and inviting NAAP to be a part of this. So let's get started. So first of all, my name is Amy Laughlin. I am the president of the National Association of Activity Professionals. I'll talk about them a little bit in a minute. And I am also an activity professional, and I'm an administrator. So just a little bit. So I am in the trenches with all of you day in and day out, and have a really got good understanding of what all of you are going through and have been going through for 6 months or more. And I echo Charles's words and say thank you for everything that you do, for the lives that you impact every day, for the joy that you bring. It is unparalleled with any other profession at this time. So we are Activity Strong. Okay, I can't get my slide to move on. Okay, this did not happen earlier. Let me stop sharing and start again. Charles, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, Amy. If you share it again and you press on the arrow at the bottom left, you should be fine.
Okay. No, it's not doing it. Okay, back again. One more time. Let me try again. Of course this happens now, right? Of course it does. Nope, still doing it. Okay, awesome.
Would you like me to share your slides?
I would love for you to do that, and I will just tell you to pass it on.
Absolutely, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, don't worry. All right, I'm just putting them on now.
Well, first of all, so let me just say, let me get started just with the beginning part. So I know today on this gathering, the vast majority of us are activity professionals, but I know we also have nurses, we have social workers, we have administrators, we have CEOs, we have people from across the gamut in long-term care. And I know that we also have people who work in different settings, whether it's skilled nursing, whether it's assisted living or memory care, independent living, adult day. You are all here and all present today. So today I'm going to be giving a bit more of a sort of a general overview on getting to know you. I know that our 2 sessions that are coming up later, you'll be learning more about sort of about how to be an exceptional assessor of residents and how to really get the information that you need to make a difference when it comes to resident engagement and quality of life. So please stick around for everything else. All right, next slide, please, Charles. Of course, the code word, we all talked about bingo already. It's very important that you keep up with that bingo card. The code word for this session is we. Next slide. And next slide. That's just about me. I'm from England, just in case you don't know. If I don't say that when I'm talking to people in person, every now and again, I kind of start seeing people turn their head on their side and look at me funny. So that I am from England. Now living in South Carolina and working at a standalone life plan retirement community. So I work across the levels on a day-to-day basis. So a little bit about NAAP. NAAP, of course, is thrilled to partner with Linked Senior and to support the Activity Strong initiative. If you are not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit organization, a national organization representing activity professionals from across the nation and reaching activity professionals across the globe with our international connections. We represent activity professionons working in geriatric settings, and we are the only membership organization to do that specifically. Our membership our membership are, the majority of people are active activity professionals. We also have recreation therapists and administrators and CEOs and different people that have committed to support NAAP and to want to join us so that they too can benefit from some of the membership perks. So why should anybody join NAAP? First of all, our primary goal, just like Charles talked about earlier, is we know how much education activity professionals need in order to be able to continue providing the services that you do day in and day out. So we are education providers, we are advocacy experts and supporters of activity professionals who are working on the front lines. We can assist you with, of course, getting your education that you need for your certification, whatever kind of certification that you have, through our live webinars and our e-learning library, and of course, our conference that we hold every spring. Our toolbox that is accessible to all members has got a wealth of information, policies, procedures, trainings, activity ideas, you name it, a topic that we'll be able to find you something on it in our toolbox that can help you get where you need to be. Also, we have a helpline and a number of different ways that you can reach out to the board for advice and support when you need it. So that's just a few little things about why you should join NAAP. $75 a year. Check out the NAAP website that's listed on there for more information. The other thing that we have been doing is an enormous amount of free COVID resources. So if you are struggling to think about what kind of activities to do, if you are looking for the most up-to-date CMS news and guidance for your nursing home and activities, if you are looking for what NAAP has to say about visitation and why visitation is important and how it should be done safely, all that information is available for free on the NAAP website. You don't have to join, as well as tons and tons of virtual tours and videos and activity ideas for residents across the continuum of care. So please check us out. Next slide, please. Certification. Of course, we have to talk about our partner organization, which is NCAP, the National Certification Council for Activity Professionals. NAAP created NCAP in 1986, and we stand strong together side by side as NAAP, the education provider, and NCAP, the credentialing organization. NAAP does not require members to be certified, but we always say that it is a true, it sets the standard if you are a certified professional. We also have NAAP members who are certified by NAAP-CC. We have NAAP members who have no certification. And we have NAAP members who are music therapists or art therapists or recreation therapists. All are welcome to be members of NAAP, but NAAP strongly promotes certification with NCAP as the industry standard and leader. So thank you. Next slide, please. So as we talk about getting to know you, when we're talking about the resident, the activity professional is the key role, the key individual on the interdisciplinary team, regardless of the area of care that you work in, to be able to gather information and then, of course, disseminate that information about that resident. And then, of course, you are the program designer, implementer, and evaluator. And I know that you know this. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir about this, but I think that you can't just take yourself for granted. You have to remember that you, the activity professional, are the individual who has the skills and has the talents and has the experience to be able to be that primary person as we get to know that individual resident. So next slide, please. Of course, we know, and this is why the gatherings and the summits are planned this way. Of course, we know that programming is driven by the care plan, which is driven by the assessment. And that's why today we're talking about getting to know you. Our programming has to change as our residents change. And so ultimately, your getting to know you process, how you get to know your resident and what is important to that resident, ultimately determines your entire program, which is why you have to take it so seriously and really make sure that you are doing the very best job that you can do. Let me just give you an example. Let me not an example. Let me just say, okay, how many of you have put an enormous amount of time and effort into a program to discover it wasn't as successful as you wanted it to be? I think probably all of us have done that, right? Yes. You've had this marvelous idea. Maybe you've seen it on social media, or you have, you've seen it in a magazine, or you've seen it from somebody else that you know, or you've thought of it out of your head and just said, oh my gosh, I have to try that. It's amazing. It sounds so exciting. It's going to be something that I really want to do. I think my residents are going to enjoy it. And you have got the budget for it. You have figured out how you're going to plan it and put together. Maybe this was during COVID, maybe this was before, when you figured out how you could get volunteers and family members to help you. And you spent an enormous amount of time and resources, time being a resource, on putting together this program that ultimately was not that successful. The residents didn't get, not because you didn't put the effort in, you put all the effort into the implementation of the program that you possibly could. Where there was a challenge is when you were developing that program, you didn't go back to that getting to know you phase and say, how is this program, which residents is this program for, right? Because I know that I have done that. Epic fail experience. Spent hours and hours, actually weeks, putting together this amazing program that ultimately fell flat on its face because the residents that I created that program for, that was not what their needs were at the time. I hadn't taken what I knew about those residents and applied it to the program. I thought, oh, this is a great program. I want to do that. And I think that sometimes that we forget that we as activity professionals, it is not about what we want to do. It's about going back to how well we know that resident and understanding what their needs are, what their wants are, what their desires are. Again, and it doesn't matter whether you work in independent living or memory care or skilled nursing. It's the same thing throughout. It's not about, unfortunately, it's not about me. I've got to say it. It's not about me and what I think is a good idea. It's about that resident and their needs that you've got care planned, and it's about their ultimate, what gives them meaning and purpose, and what lights a fire in them, which is what you learn when you get to know somebody. So I just want to put that out there because I know we've all done it, and I want you to think about that from a different perspective. It's not that your program failed. It's that you probably put together an amazing activity. It just wasn't right for the group of residents that you had at the time. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. So, activity professionals are the gatekeepers to our residents. And I know that's a picture of a big scary looking gate, but I want you to think of it as a very positive role. When someone comes to your community, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, they're often, regardless of whether they're moving in independent living or in skilled nursing or anywhere in between, they're not an open book. They are closed in and shut down, and they are not willing to give information up about themselves. Not to mention, especially if you're coming into a highly regulated area, if you're coming into a post-acute rehab or something like that, and that resident is getting hammered with questions. The activity professional has the innate ability to be that gatekeeper, to be able to open that resident, to be able to get to know them in a way that other members of the interdisciplinary team are not able to do that. Maybe a bridge to the resident is a better word, or the person with the key to the gate, but it's that same idea of being able to be the person to open that resident from their shell, open that resident to be able to get to know them in a really deep personal level. I also want to put this out to everybody too. NAAP has a strong code of ethics when it comes to being an activity professional and holding ourselves to a high professional standard. Two of our ethical principles in our code of ethics. One of them is I've lost my actual name right here. Okay, so we're talking about protecting and preserving resident autonomy. Not just residents' rights, but that resident, that ability to self-determined, their ability to make decisions for themselves. And as the gatekeeper, again, you have that opportunity to empower that resident to be able to give that information about themselves or be comfortable enough to give that information about themselves. And another one of our ethical principles is to promote quality of life. So it's not just about activity professionals having the skills and the talents to be the gatekeeper. It's about us also having an ethical responsibility to be that person, to open that resident up so that we can get to know them and promote their quality of life. All right, Charles, next slide, please. So information gathering, how are we figuring things out about residents? And like I said, I know that the speakers later will touch on this a little bit more too, but again, across the continuum of we've got our traditional MDS Section F interview, we've got informal conversations. If they've been somewhere else, a hospital or somewhere before they've come to stay with you, you're going to be looking at prior records. And of course, the traditional activities assessment. I know so many of us are required to do a certain kind of assessment by our company, or you're using a certain kind of medical supplies form that your corporation has approved to use, or you've pulled one out of a book. I hope that's working for you. But really, how successful are they in getting to the root of what defines the resident as individual? We don't just need past information. It's not about whether somebody used to knit or would like to go for a walk outside every day. It's about finding out what motivates that resident, what drives that resident, what is going to get that resident out of bed now versus tomorrow or 3 weeks ago, okay? I know that I will tell you very honestly that we do not, in independent living, we don't do any kind of assessment when somebody comes into the community. You know, it's not necessarily what someone in independent living wants to do. They're not willing to sit down and fill out a form where they're giving what they consider to be personal information to somebody that they don't know yet. So that cannot happen on paper within 24 hours or 48, 72 hours of somebody else arriving. So why would we think that it's okay that our skilled level residents are okay with giving out that kind of information so quickly before any relationships have been built, before there is any trust between you and between the resident, or between anybody in the community or facility where you're working right now. So next slide, please, Charles. I want you to think about a resident on their first day into your community, whether that's an admission to a skilled level, whether that's a move-in to an independent living. And I want you to go ahead and put in the chat box. I want you to type in, how do you think that resident is feeling? What's one emotion that they might be feeling that day? Oh, brilliant, guys. Yes. So good. Thank you. Scared, overwhelmed, nervous, lost, anxious, scared, angry, depressed, paranoid, lonely. So good. All right. Next slide, please, Charles. Intimidated. I love that. Vulnerable. Were any of those positive? Were any of those? I don't think anybody put a positive emotion down. Of course, it's a change. None of us like change, right? I mean, and I'm someone actually who doesn't mind change very much. I kind of get excited about some things changing. But an elder who could be cognitively frail, who could be physically frail, who may have been going through a very difficult time emotionally or physically, the last thing they're going to be feeling on the day they move into your community is happy, happy, joy, joy. Okay? I think that even when we're talking about residents who may have chosen to move into an assisted living, they may have chosen to move into an independent living community, there is a great deal of anxiety, trepidation, of course, stress. It's a change, it's something grief-stricken. I love that, Amber. Thank you. Yes, they are grieving their past life, their independence that they have lost. And so what do we try to do? We bounce in there all happy. Hi, guys, I'm Amy from Activities. I'm here to welcome you to the community, and here's a bag and here's a balloon, and let me talk to you about your life. What time do you like to get up in the morning? You know, and then we're going through our customary routine questions. We're talking about what activities they might like to join. And we have not been able to take the time yet to build that bridge to that resident so that they trust us to open up. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. That's what we have to do. We are required by our regulations to go into that residence room and introduce ourselves and orient them to the calendar and start asking those questions so we can start to build knowledge about that resident. But are we really building a kind of a holistic picture of that resident, or are we just going through the motions because we're required to do that? That's kind of a rhetorical question because I pretty much know the answer. So, but I want you to really concentrate on how that resident might be feeling when you go into their room, and perhaps lowering down the enthusiasm a little bit. And and start with acknowledging that these feelings that they're having, that they are going to be grieving, they are going to be anxious, they may well be in pain, they could be confused and overwhelmed, and all those things that are going on at the moment in that transition time, and start to slowly build that trust. So next slide, please. So moving back to the role of the activity professional. This is why what we do is so important, and why the way we do things are so important in those early stages of getting to know somebody. You know, we might bound in and be enthusiastic and say, "Hi, I'm Amy from Activities," but I see someone who's teary. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take the time to figure out what's going on with them. I'm going to give them time. We take the time that they need as much as we can. I understand we're busy. We listen. We validate their feelings. We pay attention. Absolutely. We make that resident feel like they're the most important person at that very time. We don't judge. It's okay for them to feel however they feel. It's okay for them to be as mad as they want to be, as sad as they want to be, because they're going through an enormous change. We don't jump to conclusions. Just because somebody is feeling some way today or is doing something today doesn't mean that they need to be put on the wanda list, you know? Because we know that it takes time to get to know a resident. We inspire trust. And I think probably most importantly, we advocate for them. We do what I call putting the resident front and center. That resident is always at the front and center of everything we are doing when we are treating them as an individual, you know, regardless of, again, of what level of care they live in, of what they have going on today, that individual resident is front and center when we're talking about them. We're talking about what they need right now. We make a resident feel like they matter because they do. Simple as that. And when you make somebody feel important, when you validate somebody's feelings, when you're not just somebody in there trying to check you got your clipboard and you're checking your boxes off of everything that you're supposed to ask the questions about. And I know that we go in there doing that, I'm just saying. But when we do that in a way where we actually listen to somebody and we pay attention, they're going to start to open up to us. We're going to start building trust. They're going to start to understand that we are somebody that they can go to, or that they can ask for, or that they can be honest with, because that's a key point. A lot of the time, and I see this a lot in, particularly in our assisted living residents here, is that they've moved in and they're feeling all those feelings from before, but they're a little bit higher functioning than our nursing home residents. They may be up and walking, and their families most of the time have made that decision for them to move to assisted living, and they're not happy about it, but they're putting on a show. They're putting on that good face for everybody. And I don't know why I see this more in assisted living than anywhere else, but they're putting on a show, and as soon as, especially obviously now we have no family visits right now, but they're moved in and they're here, and the family's gone, and they can finally stop having to pretend anymore. And they can really feel what they're feeling, and they can express it, but only if they have someone that they're comfortable doing that with. Okay. And that's you, which is awesome. But gosh, isn't that a responsibility? When you think about all the residents you have in your community and how you could be that one person to everybody, it's a responsibility, but it's also why would anyone want to do anything else? That's what we do as activity professionals. And I think I don't know what, it's just such an amazing, incredible feeling to be able to have that kind of impact on people's lives. At least I think so. Next slide, please, Charles. So yes, due to the relationships we build, we're able to unlock and open the gate to learn more about the residents. So, and this is where we struggle, because of course, you know, sometimes it's just you and a whole building full of people. I think that, and we'll talk a bit about the Activity Strong Resident Engagement Index in a little bit, but I do think that, of course, there aren't enough activity professionals. There aren't enough of us in there. There aren't enough of us doing what we need to do. And I don't want you to get downhearted about that. I know I've seen a lot of, over the past 6 months with COVID, I know NAAP has been contacted by a ton of different activity professionals who've had their hours cut, who've been laid off, or who haven't been laid off and they're doing everyone else's job because everyone else is out sick due to COVID. They are just doing unbelievable things to take care of that resident. So, and don't lose heart, because you are essential, and we do recognize that, and we know that, and we are building a crew that makes sure that provides that support to you as through the Activity Strong initiative. But let me get back to what I was talking about. Sorry. So, and this is my opinion. This is my opinion. So what do you think is the single most important thing to try to learn about a resident in order to promote quality of life? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of it's a conundrum. I mean, why would you just want to know one thing about them? But I think if there's one question that you can ask to residents who have some degree of orientation, that you will be able to find, you'll be able to learn a lot about them from asking them that one question. I love it. These things, you've got, I know I'm looking in the chat box, you've got some amazing answers. So keep going. Next slide, please, Charles. My favorite thing to ask a new resident is to tell me, tell me something you're passionate about. And it can be anything. Remember, there is no wrong answer. There's no right answer. Everybody's passions are individual and everybody is different. But if you ask somebody what they're passionate about, when you're talking about passion, you're talking about something that incites a positive emotional response in somebody, right? What drives you? That kind of tells me what drives you. It tells me what motivates you. It tells me what will get you, what might get you out of bed and might get you moving that day. What are you passionate about? I also, but just as a side note, I also always ask this question in job interviews when I'm interviewing people. Doesn't matter to me what the answer is. I tell them, outside of your job and your career, tell me something you're passionate about, or tell me several things you're passionate about, because I just want to know that someone has passion. I want to know that they have something that ignites a fire in them and drives them and motivates them. So, you've all got some great questions, by the way. I love this. Okay, next slide, please, Charles. So what are you passionate about? We want to learn what is deeply important to our residents. Like I said, what motivates them, what makes them happy, what gives them that immediate positive response. And I will say, I think the majority of people are just going to have a handful of chosen few passions, a handful, because in life, there's not enough room. There's not enough time for things, for us to have 20 things we're passionate about. There just isn't. Even you in your life. Yes, I love it. You guys are putting in the chat box now what you're passionate about. Thank you. Please do keep doing that. I've got some great examples coming in. I think that everybody has a few things, and some of them are based on relationships, and some of them are based on hobbies and interests and things that you love. But all of us just have a chosen few, a handful of things that they're passionate about. So next slide, please. So talking to your residents, these are the things that most of the time come up. Residents will talk about their relationships, whether it's a significant other, children, grandchildren, somebody else in the family, very close friends. I would say that certainly in my life, my close relationships with people, I really do call them my chosen few, the chosen few people in my life that really give my life meaning. That's one of my passions. A lot of people talk about their faith and their faith community, their faith practices. That's something they're passionate about. When I ask independent living residents, many of them talk about health and wellness, staying healthy. And sometimes it's to do with physical health, sometimes it's to do with mental health, sometimes it's to do with exercise, sometimes it's to do with sometimes it's to do with a more emotional level of health, how they're feeling on the inside. That's something that a lot of people talk to me about. Their pets. Lots of people have talked about, in the chat box, people are saying they're passionate about their dogs. Absolutely. Spending time outside. Many residents talk about the need to go outside on a routine and daily basis. And I know we asked that in our activities assessment, but how many opportunities, how are we taking that true aspect of getting to know somebody? How are we care planning for that and making that happen on our calendar? How many times are we truly ensuring that that resident has an opportunity to go outside when that's one of their passions? A favorite hobby, of course, and some people even talk about their job as being their passion. Again, I have independent living residents who some of them are still working or they're volunteering in some way, and that is something that they're passionate about. So I want you to think about that for yourself as well, as you're getting to know you, as you're growing in your career and your profession, and you're thinking about how you can focus on you and growing yourself as an individual. I want you to truly see if you can identify what, maybe your three outside of your job, and probably your spouse and your kids, your immediate family, your significant other, whatever your situation is, making sure that you've got passion for a couple of things, and that you're finding time and investing time in yourself to do that, because that is also going to help keep you happy, which is going to help make you a better activity profession ultimately. All right, next slide, please, Charles. So once you understand a resident's passions, once you know what motivates them, once you know what they love and what brings them joy, you can plan to engage that resident with purpose. Because like I said before, you have to, your getting to know you process drives your care plans, drives your programming. It's not the other way around. And so you have to dig deep into that resident to understand their passions so that you can develop appropriate programming that means something. All right, next slide, please. Because if you're doing program that connects with that resident's passions, they are much more likely to participate. Hello, my epic fail of an activity where I could have had 100 people there and I had 3, that was the problem. I didn't connect my activity with passions, and so nobody showed up because that wasn't what anyone was interested in. So of course our residents are going to have a better sense of contentment. They're going to enjoy the process as well as the end result. They'll want to try it again or possibly try other activities. And connect with other residents. So especially right now, I'm finding that connecting residents with other residents when they can't have their family in to visit, building those social connections between residents is even more important. And I've had some really wonderful success stories with some residents who spent a lot of time with their families when they could have families in, and when they couldn't, they obviously became exceptionally isolated and depressed very quickly. But being able to connect them with other residents who are feeling the same way has actually really helped. And they kind of have become friends who are like family on a limited basis. So I think that that's something that we really need to focus on right now as well. And of course, our residents are going to be an advocate and a cheerleader for you, the activity professional and the activities program. There is nothing like having a group of residents who are going to constantly be your cheerleader. Don't get me wrong. I know residents appreciate what we do. I will say that they probably appreciate what we do far more than anybody else does in our field. But that idea of having several people who are going to talk positive things about your program to other residents and to other employees that's good internal marketing for you and for your program. Okay. And of course, if they tell their families that you're doing a great job, hopefully that will reduce family anxiety a little bit, because of course our families are really struggling right now too. Next slide, please. All right, I got to speed up a little bit. Okay. Disseminating the information. So we have gathered this information. We've gathered this information the very best way we know how, by building relationships and building trust, and residents have opened up to us. So now, of course, we don't want to break any confidences unless it's needed for medical reasons. But we always want to make sure that we're giving out that information to everyone else who would need it, so that we can continue to push quality of life across all departments. And it's not just the activities department that is the quality of life department. Because remember, and I heard this on another seminar not long ago, and I just thought it was brilliant. Quality of care is a piece of quality of life. Quality of life is the umbrella. Underneath that, quality of care is one small piece. So, whereas I think our nursing departments would have the opinion that quality of care is much more important. But we have to be the ones to give out this information to people in a way that is accessible, in a way that is understood, and in a way that can be useful. So the more people who know about it, the more they can advocate for quality of life too. So I will say, we've been trying to, COVID has been a terribly hard time for all of us, of course. But more recently, I've been on some calls and been with some different people who in the field from we've been talking about what some of the positives have been from COVID and from the restrictions that we've been under. And I do think that one of the wonderful things that has happened during time of COVID is that activity professionals have had to switch from group activities to one-to-ones. And don't get me wrong, I know that you can't minutes of engagement, the amount of time you're able to spend with someone doing something meaningful, are small when you have an enormous amount of residents and only one or two of you to be able to do those things. But I think we've had a rare kind of forced opportunity to spend more intimate time with residents, getting to know them better and understanding more about them. So I think that there are some positives. I know that I know some of my residents here better than I did before because of that one-on-one time that I've been able to spend with them. And I know that is true for other activity professionals as well. I think that's it's hard for us to say that, but I think we'll be able to look back and say that was something that we are grateful for, regardless of the crazy world that we live in right now. All right, next slide, please. So of course, how are we giving out that information? Care plans, progress notes, meetings, whatever, all the things we normally do. Obviously, anything that is medical related has to be protected, but anything that's not, and that your resident is okay with you sharing, for goodness sake, put it out there. If you know that Mr. Smith in room 102A is absolutely passionate about getting outside and getting his fingers dirty, getting down in the dirt, if that's what he wants to do, you need to tell everybody that and get as many people as possible to take him outside every day to get his hands dirty, right? Because it's not just about you as the activity professional providing all the programs. That can be done by anybody at any time, can take him outside, even if it's just for 2 minutes to deadhead a couple of little geraniums, that are outside the front door that he's been eyeing them through the door and knows that he needs to get out there and pay some attention to them, right? So even if just for a few minutes, spread the word. Put pictures of them, do it on the bulletin boards. Let everybody know you're doing it. Make sure you share the knowledge. I put help make dreams come true on this. I don't want you all to get the idea that you have to make everybody's dreams come true. You have to meet everybody's if somebody is passionate about flying, it might be challenging to get them to be able to fly all the time now, but you are the dream makers as well as the gatekeepers. You can do your very best with what you can do. Just don't set yourself up to be for things that you're not ever going to be successful in. I think as well, we as activity professionals, we have very, very high expectations for ourselves because we have so many people who are relying on us. And I think sometimes that becomes kind of an emotional burden. Okay. So be careful that you're not making all your residents' dreams come true at the expense of your own. All right, move back to the next slide, please. I love this. Thank you, Keith Richards. Everybody's got a different way of telling a story and has different stories to tell. We're all individuals. We're all different. We all have different passions. We all have different things that make us feel important. And they all deserve to be recognized and they all deserve to be celebrated. Next slide, please. So this is very exciting. I hope that all of you have had the opportunity to go to the Activity Strong website and check out the Resident Engagement Index score. This is something that Activity Strong have put together to try to measure. Because remember, if it's not measurable, how are you going to make it better? Absolute defining point of quality improvement, right? Quality assurance, performance improvement. So you've got to be able to measure it, to be able to know where you are and benchmark it, to be able to get an improvement next time around. So this great tool has been put together by a kind of a panel of experts in the field, including academics and doctors in the field of gerontology and sociology, including that also NCAP and NAAP were both involved with this, of course, and Linked Senior as well, because Activity Strong has created a way to measure and manage resident engagement strategies. So please go to activitystrong.com and look up the Resident Engagement Index and complete it, because it will give you an idea of where you are now with your resident engagement. And don't get me, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. This is just a way to be able to say, okay, my engagement is here and I want it to be here. How am I going to get it to that next level? And how can things like Activity Strong initiative, how can NAAP, how can Linked Senior, how can NCAP, how can we help you get your resident engagement to the next level? That's what we're all here to do ultimately, is to make our residents' lives better through programs such as this. So I'm pretty excited about this. I really do. So I was part of the group that put this together, and I realized today that I hadn't actually filled it out myself. So I was going through my presentation this morning and thought, I'm going to do it right now. So I completed my my resident engagement index score for my independent living area, because I know that is resident engagement is very different when you've got a group of independent living people, because we don't care plan, we don't assess them, we don't care plan them, we have to gather information in different ways. So I encourage you to go and fill it out, figure out where you are now and where you want to go, and let us help you get there. Okay, next slide please. Oh, nearly finished. Yes. And so I just want to say, many of you, one of your passions, I'm sure, are your career. They're your residents, they're impacting lives and making them better. And so it is wonderful. It's a beautiful thing when a career and a passion come together. And I am so appreciative of all activity professionals for doing what you do day in and day out, serving the residents that you serve. Next slide, please, Charles. I just want to put the manifesto back in here again as well, because I think that well, I love the whole thing. But there are just a couple of things that I want to, I love the line that says, we believe life is always wild and precious. I think that we don't think of residents who are living in skilled nursing facilities and dementia communities, wherever they may be. We don't think of their lives as being wild. And we don't think of their lives as being necessarily precious. They're just somebody who's old and who's frail and who need care. And I think that idea of recognizing that life is not predictable and yet life is always sacred is just so, it touches me right here. It touches me right here. I have no words for it. So thank you very much, everybody. That's me. I'm wrapping it up now. I'm a couple minutes over. I want to make sure I've got some time for some questions and some talk if I need to. So what can I do for you?
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for such a fantastic presentation. That quote that line is actually also one of my favorite. It comes from a poem of Mary Oliver called "The Grasshopper." But yeah, every single every life is meaningful and worth respected, including older adults. That's why we believe old people are cool. We've had a few questions, Amy. People were asking, would you mind repeating the quote, the umbrella quote that you said, care and quality of life?
So, and also this is not an Amy Laughlin original. I heard this on another seminar not that long, and I'll be honest, I believe, true confession, I too, as an administrator, have not done a very good job at getting all my continuing education in times of COVID. So I just watched an enormous amount of NAB approved webinars in a short space of time. So I don't have my notes in front of me from all of those, but this was a quote that came from one of those. I believe it was a leading age presentation. And it talked about the idea of quality of life when you're talking about senior living being an umbrella. And there are so many things that fall underneath quality of life. Quality of care is one of those things. I think we have kind of, in the field of senior living, we look at quality of care being kind of one side of the coin and quality of life as being the other. But I don't think that's true. I think in order to have quality of life, you have to have good quality of care to get there. Does that make sense? Your life can only, the quality of your life, if you're living your life with purpose and with joy, you can't get that if you're not getting meals on time, if you're not getting the medications that you need, if you're not getting a shower if you're getting a shower when you requested a bath, or if you are not having attention enough paid to you, if you're not getting rounded on when you need to, if your call light is not being answered when you want it to, then how are you going to have quality of life if those basic quality of care issues are not met? I think quality of care is a stepping stone on the way to that quality of life piece. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Amy, I also want to thank you for your fantastic advice when it came to that one question, right? Like, we know that our work is about the purpose of our residents, and asking them what they're passionate about is really a way for us to understand what is the essence of these individuals. So thank you very much for that. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you.
I also want to take a minute and tell you something important, Amy, right? Like, at Activity is Strong, myself, Link Senior, all of us, we believe that activity directors and life enrichment directors are the most important and essential people for senior living. We believe that. And I think that I'm not the only one to thank you as the leader of the National Association of Activity Professionals for your leadership and what you do leading our profession, our discipline, and our industry through these very, very difficult and challenging times. So with that, again, Amy, thank you for joining. NAAP, thank you for contributing to this platform. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or on the screen here, we have Amy's detail. Amy, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. It's been a pleasure and my privilege.
Take care. Amy, I'll just stop sharing and feel free to continue being here.